Music's medicine calling me home. We all have chapters in life that are confronting, life-changing and illuminating. Sometimes life arrives with great gifts very poorly wrapped in devastating circumstances. Life has plans of its own. Over the course of a year in 2004, a tsunami of chaos hit my world. It began with major surgery for skin cancer on my face. 2 weeks after, before I'd even properly healed, I was so armoured I was back on stage singing and touring Australia without giving myself a lot of time. 6 weeks after that, my marriage fell apart. And because I wasn't clearly making enough life-changing decisions at the time, I did what any slightly unhinged singer would do. I took a gig in Japan. I performed in the great jazz clubs of Kyoto. I sang on a boat that cruised Lake Biwa under lantern light. I cracked 3 ribs in a bicycle accident and kept performing anyway. I had the show must go on spirit and I wore it like armour. But armour can't protect you from everything. When the call came that my sister Danielle was missing in a drift dive in the open Fijian Ocean, my whole world cracked open. Danielle wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend. She was my confidant. She was the one I was so comfortable to have my heart fully open with. We had spoken the day before, and she told me she was happier than she'd ever been in her entire life. And when it came time to hang up, neither of us wanted to say goodbye. We lingered. We laughed at how silly we were being. We spoke every single day. The night she disappeared, I walked to the edge of Lake Biwa. There was a full moon and a storm raging. I stood there and wept uncontrollably. When my friends asked me what was wrong, I told them I felt as though something was being ripped from me. I didn't know what I knew deep in my cells. You know those moments in life when something inside you knows something significant is happening, but your mind doesn't know what it is yet. When my mother called with the news that Danielle was missing, I fell to my knees and screamed. It was physical, it was visceral, otherworldly. This could not be, not Danielle. My mother needed to keep the phone line free for updates from Fiji. And suddenly I was alone in a foreign country with the most unimaginable news of my life. It is impossible to describe the feeling adequately, and it is certainly not something I would ever wish on another human being. And yet somewhere inside that pain, a thought rose in me with absolute certainty. I could change the stars. I truly believed that if I got on a plane, I met my mother in Sydney and we made it to Fiji, I would find her. My love was that vast. I went into action, ready to put the stars back in their rightful place. My family hired planes, we lobbied governments, we engaged people of influence. What followed became one of the largest searches ever staged in Fiji. For 6 weeks we searched, and in the middle of it all, we lost our beloved Nana too. We didn't find my sister Danielle. The journey to healing felt like falling off a cliff, and at the same time, it was as if my compassion for humanity had been fed a growth hormone. It was hard and foreign ground, but I found myself thinking about humanity all the time, feeling enormous tenderness for what people carry. For a while, I stopped singing altogether. It was impossible to imagine entertaining people while holding so much ache in my body, my heart, and my mind. I lived on my savings, and just as they were starting to dwindle after about 8 months, a friend called and said, "Hey, Corinne, what would it take to get you back to work?" And I told him, if it pays a lot of money for a very short investment of my time, I'm interested. A week later, he called back, $1,000 for 5 minutes, corporate team building, something I had never heard of. And I said yes. I met people in an office foyer and got them singing together as they arrived at work, complete strangers, laughing, breathing, and their voices rising together. I even jumped on a conference call and had New York and Sydney singing to each other across the ocean. When I got home that night, I called my ex-husband. I told him that for the first time since losing Danielle, I had felt joy again. Music had reached into the rubble and pulled something out of me. That one conversation changed the entire direction of my life. Through a cascade of serendipity, a former colleague who had started a new job that very day, a flatmate who asked exactly the right question, and a director who looked at me and said, "You are perfect for this," I found myself on a plane to Singapore as lead facilitator and sales representative for Southeast Asia and the Middle East through drumming. No drumming skills, no sales experience, just a mountain I needed to climb. And climb I did for 14 years. It was not an easy move. I cried the entire plane journey. And when I landed in Singapore, my taxi driver asked, "What brings you here?" I said, "I've been asking myself that very same question." After I shared a little of my story, he turned to me and said, "I will help you." This beautiful man offered me kindness when I needed it most. He picked me up from the airport and delivered me back to the airport for years. We became friends. One of the most challenging things about losing Danielle was that I couldn't talk to her anymore. I couldn't pick up the phone. I couldn't share how I was feeling. I didn't know how to process the loneliness of loving someone so deeply and no longer being able to connect with her in the way I always had. So I started writing letters. I shared everything with her. The things that made me angry, the things that made me laugh, the things I wished she'd been there to witness, the moments that were absolutely impossible, the moments I wasn't sure I would survive. Those letters allowed me to stay connected to my sister. They became my companion through grief. And over time, something unexpected happened. The letters began turning into songs. Music began calling me home. What eventually emerged was an album called Melt. The title felt fitting because grief had melted everything I thought I knew about life. It melted certainty, it melted plans, and it melted the version of myself that existed before Danielle died. Melt is also a reminder that life has plans of its own. Here's an example of what can happen when we show up in the rubble. After returning to Singapore from a 32-hour flight from Victoria, BC, severely jet-lagged, my landlord invited me to dinner. I politely declined. She politely ignored my decline. She informed me that the dinner was actually being held in my honour and that my attendance was therefore non-negotiable. She was a master of persuasion, and so I went. That evening, I met two men who within 4 months would offer to produce my record. National Geographic later sponsored Melt by providing extraordinary footage filmed by my dear, dear friend, Tony Houston. The project evolved into a film that received multiple Best Nature Film Awards in the United States. I performed Melt all around the world. The album was launched at Stonehenge on the summer solstice before thousands of people. It later received a World Peace Award for its contribution to humanity. People often ask me how those things happen, and the truth is, it was grace. And life conspiring to maneuver me and touch hearts and heal my own. I wasn't chasing any of it. I was simply expressing my grief, my loss, my deep love, and what I had learned from loving Danielle so profoundly. Every song became a bridge between where I was and where I really needed to go. After leading drumming workshops for 18 months and faking my drumming skills the entire time, it was enough. Life had plans for music to flow through me as medicine. I started my own company, Discover Your Voice, and went on to help more than 50,000 people find their common voice in song. And one of the greatest joys for me is helping organisations discover their common voice through music, bringing vision and values into melody, helping people move beyond job titles and just connect as human beings. Within 24 hours of sharing the idea of writing songs about corporate vision and values, I found myself at a dinner table being asked to submit a proposal overnight for an international business meeting. No pressure. It's amazing how creativity responds when given a deadline. Sometimes a deadline becomes a lifeline. I stayed up all night creating a process, sent the proposal, and by breakfast I had a yes. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Switzerland to work with Phil Collins' Little Dream Foundation at a studio co-owned by Paul Sutton from Yes. I had surveyed a global team, written a song based on their responses, and somehow found myself walking through one of the most extraordinary studios I had ever seen. I trained the global CSR team to sing Dreaming on the Outside, and we recorded the song together. Spontaneously, I invited one of the children supported by Phil's foundation to join us in the recording, and it was magic. Music medicine flows where it needs to go. I found myself training a choir of 160 executives from all over the world to sing the song. And as the group gathered, there was a lot of nervous energy in the room. Singing can be a place of great vulnerability for many people. One of the young women supported by the charity had come to listen. She was confined to a wheelchair, needing 100% care. Her name was Kim. She had a muscular disease and only 11% lung capacity. I spontaneously invited her to sing for the group, and Kim was extraordinary. She sang like an angel, full of courage and presence. And when I turned back to the group, there were so many tears. Hearing Kim sing grounded the room. It opened people's hearts. Suddenly they were able to jump in. It was a beautiful way to warm up their hearts and their voices. After rehearsing for a few hours, we gathered our 160-piece choir with children from the charity, and we performed for the final closing ceremony of the IBM meeting, where 1,000 staff from MCI joined the chorus of Dreaming on the Outside. The whole room erupted into the song. It was epic. Believe in your heart, dreams come alive when you live them on the outside. Have hope in your heart, they will come true. 'Cause the dream you are seeking is seeking you. Looking back now, I realize I intuitively knew I needed to move country and do something challenging in order to really fully engage with life. I now know music brings you into a harmonic connection with the universe. You are not just listening, you are feeling what you need to do. Music brought and continues to bring avalanches of serendipity into my world, and that is why I want to share this medicine far and wide. I had a power bank that music had built within me for singing for years, and I could draw upon it to lead me home, to know what I stand for and to stand for it. I write songs of healing about things that matter to me, the environment, the evolution of humanity, and about connection. I'm passionate about supporting women and children to discover their voice. Music is in all of us. It is our birthright. Science now backs up why it is medicine for us. Singing stimulates the vagus nerve, supports emotional regulation, increases oxytocin and dopamine, and helps us feel connected to ourselves and to one another. Our brains light up more on a PET scan when we are participating in music than any other activity we do as humans. Most importantly, music requires us to listen. Singing and playing music requires deep, deep listening. This quality of listening became my compass. It gave me clarity, a knowing of what I stand for and what I am here to do. Music quite simply helps us remember who we are. And I wonder, as women who lead, who carry so much, what is your medicine? What is the thing that when you let it in, reminds you who you really are? For me, music called me home again and again, and perhaps music is quietly calling you home too. There's only one way to find out. Thank you.